Hey there, TigerShark here again with Okano. This week I played another game from Steam called Brain Marmalade. I'll just say from the start, I won't comment on the story. You're told to find the brain marmalade in order to not be lonely anymore or something like that. And then you go and find it. And then maybe you die? I'm really not even sure. Anyway, this is a video game, so the journey really is the important thing. In this case, the journey took me about an hour. So I'll talk about what I liked first as usual, and then I'll get into the criticisms. It's a 2D platformer. You have moving platforms, floating platforms, buzzsaws, lasers, cannons, and 3 types of enemies. Nothing particularly stands out about the gameplay or level design. What struck me was the art style. It's a simple black and white hand-drawn style, which I say all the time is always something that I enjoy. The character is weird looking, which is always interesting. There's all kinds of weird stuff in the background. There are only 3 enemy types, not counting bosses, but they're all different and unique. The combat is a little interesting. When you get close enough to the enemies, a pattern of left and right clicks appears over their heads. Each enemy type has its own pattern that you can memorize. You click the enemy in the pattern shown, and then a tentacle pops out of the ground and kills it. That brings up all sorts of questions that we don't get answers to. It's unique and weird, and I love it. The platforming is decent, and it gets harder as you progress. It's downright infuriating in the last level. But the fact that it's hard but beatable means that it was pretty well made. I'll talk about the bosses as a transition between the pros and cons for the game. I loved the visual design of the bosses. The first was a large monster with blade arms and a cannon on its back. The second was a giant recycling machine with cannons and buzzsaws. And the last one was the brain marmalade itself, which looked like a jar of marmalade with claws. The bosses each would attack a few times and then pause, opening up their weak spot for a hit. On paper, I like this design. You can learn the attack patterns, dodge the attacks, and then come in for a hit. In practice, it didn't quite work like this. The attacks come out far too fast to react to a lot of the time. But the boss retains any damage you do to it even when you die. So I would try and fail to dodge, and maybe get one hit in, and then I would get hit again and die. Then I just respawn and repeat the process until I'd done enough damage to finish it. This doesn't feel like it was the intended experience. The bosses should have been fun, but they ended up being the most annoying part of the game for me. Purely because I could see the potential, I could see how the developer probably envisioned the fights going. But it just didn't work the way I think it should have. In the final fight with the brain marmalade, I ended up accidentally getting on top of the jar. I don't think I was supposed to be able to do that because none of its attacks could hit me and I could still hit it when the weak spot opened. And honestly, I don't even feel bad for cheesing it because I just wasn't enjoying the fight before I found the exploit. Giving the boss's attacks a little more warning so you have more time to react would make all the difference, or even adding in iframes when you roll so you can dodge through attacks. Another thing that annoyed me to no end was the fact that you have 4 hearts of HP, but when you die you respawn with only 2. You can find hearts to heal throughout levels, and there will be a couple in the boss rooms as well, but once you use them, they're gone. They don't respawn when you die. So while I was dying over and over to the bosses, I only ever had 2 hearts of HP, which just made me die faster. Making it so you respawn with full hearts when you die would also make a pretty big difference in the boss fights. It also was annoying in the attic, which was the lead up to the final boss. I'd died so many times here, when having a single extra heart would have let me make it through the room. Which also brings to mind that some of the traps are one-hit kills even if you have all 4 hearts. Specifically the saws and the lasers. One-hit kills are literally always annoying in any game ever. Also, one of the enemy types is an exploding bug. It runs at you and blows itself up. They're a little too fast. You have to have super fast fingers to take them out before they bomb you. If they were a tiny bit slower than you, it would be less annoying. But enemies don't respawn after death, which is actually really nice. One more gameplay thought. I wished I could jump while rolling. I died a lot because I rolled off an edge, because I underestimated how far the roll would take me. Speaking of the roll, there is only one spot in the entire game where a roll is required. Right in the start, you have to roll through a small space. You never have to do that again. Weird to add it as a mechanic and then never use it. I had a bug right there where if I took any damage before I got to that spot, then an invisible wall would stop me from rolling through for some reason. I had to restart the beginning a bunch of times. I almost quit there thinking the game was just broken. Wow, I feel like I had a lot of negative things to say there. Negatives just stand out more. I still liked the game. It was perfectly serviceable most of the time, and I enjoyed it for the most part. I probably won't ever play it again, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't give it a try. And if you want to, the link will be in the description. So anyway, that's all for this one, and as always, I hope you have a spectacular day. I have other channels and projects that I would love for you to check out. I have a second channel called Drawing with TigerShark, where I illustrate movies I haven't seen based on the Wikipedia description. I have an EP on Spotify called 5,555 Miles as my one-man band called Power Mouse. And finally, I have a clothing brand called Studio Duck Apparel featuring original artwork that I create myself. The links to these things will all be in the description.